episode 60 of Fist of the North Star 1 point. The keyword for this episode is going to be test. Yeah, another paradox. So the previous two episodes and this one are going to be about paradoxes, let's say. In this episode, we see Kenshiro's past and Shu's, let's say, and Rao's. I mean, all the dudes that we see, I guess, in that flashback. Anyway, so let's say Shu, who sacrifices his eyes to save Kenshiro, right? Well, frankly, this is the kind of thing that you see in anime. I don't say this about Fist of the North Star, so it's a paradox. I'm going to develop it, but in animes, when you feel like the drama, the emotion is forced, as in you really feel that the scenarist is showing you a scene to tell you, look, this is sad, be sad, cry over it, and you're like, well, I don't feel like it's very natural, you know. I don't feel like it makes a lot of sense, because Shu sacrifices his eyes, and maybe even the first time well, on some level you still think it's amazing, but then you go, frankly, why did Shu fight him in the first place if he knows that Kenshiro will have to die if he doesn't meet his... What's going on, right? Why did Shu do that? And so he got to sacrifice his eyes, because you feel like the scenarists want to make you feel like, whoa, Shu sacrificed himself, but you think maybe he's dumb. So that's the problem with this kind of things. Now, I don't think it's the case in Fist of the North Star, but it's the case in many animes, and I just wanted to mention this, I guess. Anyway, so why does Shu do that? Why does he fight against Kenshiro? It's almost actually explicit. They almost say it. They pretty much say it, actually. Why? Not directly, let's say. And the keyword is test, because, well, basically Shu tests Kenshiro, but that is not satisfying enough. I'm going to develop. But not only Shu, Rao too. That's pretty cool. We have two characters here. The one who probably brought it there, Rao, and the one who takes him out of there, Shu. Also, I'm gonna. They are two comparable figures to Kenshiro, but that's going to be. I keep that for last. But they both test Kenshiro, so there's a bit of subtlety also in what Rao says. The conversation between Souther and Rao. It's like Souther asks Rao, like, "What's going on with this kid? Is he on your way, or aren't you worried about it?" And Rao doesn't really answer, you know. And so you don't know whether, let's say, Rao thinks Kenshiro is a threat, or he thinks he's just going to die there. And what Rao, not even probably, certainly does, right? We have indication to that. And I couldn't understand this the first times, and I watched it back recently, and at the very end of this scene, Rao goes, "Kenshiro, he really is." So Rao definitely brought Kenshiro there to test Kenshiro's capacity, to see whether he's not actually a threat as he probably fears so, let's say, and so he's going to die, or he is, and his suspicion seems to be confirmed there. Now, we know what kind of dude Rao is, right? So he could kill anyone on his path. But what about Shu? You think he's a good dude? But it's almost explicit, because Souther says that Kenshiro awakened Shu's star of benevolence. So he's not benevolent yet. Who does this remind you of? Rei, the star of justice. But what kind of justice was it before finding 𝚿𝚎𝚌𝚌𝚎 back, and he was ready to kill the man with the 7 scars, which he regrets? Well, it was a passive kind of justice, which we talked about. So that's the kind of Shu that you get there. It's a passive form of benevolence. And so he sees that kid with the light in his eyes, because he talks about light, right? And with the light in his eyes, he sends energy. Kenshiro answers. He fights against him because he wants to confirm, he wants to test Kenshiro. Kenshiro wins. So Kenshiro didn't lose there, let's say, for Shu. He wins, and so he activates, let's say, Shu's star of benevolence, and so he sacrifices his light for Kenshiro's because he sees that potential. And so the last thing I want to say is that Rao and Shu both get to be some sort of paternal figure for Kenshiro. Rao being that big brother, an example for Kenshiro, but of course it's kind of like the evil father. We'll have a much development for this later. And Shu is of course the good father who sacrifices for his son, let's say, and Kenshiro is going to fight for him later. What a great anime, isn't it?